from Outlaw Radio and Big John from the Texas Nation, and we're going to talk about our best friends, the ANC, and how they try to influence the Native Americans in America with land reform. We're going to hear a story where some representatives from the ANC went to the res to try and influence the Native Americans here in Texas to get support for land reform in the United States, and were chased off the res with their tails between their legs, and they were very lucky to leave there even with that. Our friend over there in Texas is going to tell us all about it. You there, big guy?
Hey, I'm good. Well, you know, the crazy thing about it was that when they came out, they wanted to, you know, make it seem like what was going on over there in Africa, it was, you know, what we went through in the early beginnings when the Europeans came across. And there is no difference. There is a difference, but it's not the same. Put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the same. Because, you know, all the tribes that were here in the very beginning, yeah, we fought with each other. We traded with each other. You know, we, you know, knew one another, but, you know, we just stayed to where we were at. You know, if that mountain was there, that from that mountain to that river, from that river to the forest and out to the desert, that was what they considered their lands. That was all theirs.
Mm-hmm.
There was no, you know, fence posts or markers or anything like that.
Yeah.
It was what they went by on the land. And so when these guys came and tried to explain that they were going through the same thing over there, the natives here said, no, you are nothing like us. You know, you have nothing that we have gone through. So they tried to, you know, make it really, you know, wanting to be a part. You know what I mean? And it wasn't any good. It was just nothing. There was nothing there. They had nothing.
Yeah. And
the other thing is that, you know, they did go into Arizona, and they went to go see the Navajos and the Apaches.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the Navajos, they listened and then just said, no, the same thing. You have nothing here.
Yeah.
And they chased them out. Then they went to the Apaches. Now, the Apaches are a little wilder. They're still wild. And, you know, the Apaches are warriors.
Yeah.
They're great warriors. There are many, many stories back in the days how the Apaches would, you know, go raiding and everything like that. Well, they did the same thing. They tried to go and talk with the Apaches. And again, the same thing, the Apaches chased them out. This time they were chased out. The Apaches said, no, you know, we don't want to hear that from you. So, you know, there is no connection with us and them, with Native people.
Yeah.
But they have, you know, there's nothing there. There's nothing. I can't see anything there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
And the amazing part is, I mean, I was born in Africa, so I know the history of it. And
Mm-hmm.
the whites arrived in 1652 in the Cape, and the only people that were indigenous to that area, in the Cape area, from the Fish River up till mostly into the Southwest African area, was mostly the Khoisan or the Sand people or the Bushmen. And
yeah,
and it wasn't until the 1800s that the Bantu or the what do they call them, the Nguni tribes, and these were mainly families. They weren't really tribes; they were families, just groups of families moving north, from the north to the south, grazing their cattle. and it was probably about the early 1800s that they first encountered white people. And the narrative that they have is that they owned the land, and we stole them. The white people stole their land. Well, in fact, the Cape was colonized by the Dutch East India Company, mainly just for just to resupply their ships to keep going. So they left certain people there to cultivate the land. Well, those people died off, but they had already had families. Families had families who had families, and this just grew into an African white tribe who knew nothing about Europe. Well, in the north, in the KwaZulu-Natal area, which is where the Zulus were, there was a family called Zulu. And when Shaka became the king of the Zulus, he basically started raiding the different groups of families. So during the time of Napoleon, he was creating his own war down in the Southern African area. And he was literally just taking over family after family after family, and they called themselves Zulu. And then he chased some of the tribes back into the Transkei area, and these are called Pondos, and then you had the Xhosa, then the Sutus came late 1800s, and so on and so on. Now, when the British came and tried to take over the whole country, they took over the Cape. Well, the Boers or the Afrikaners or the people that had been living there for years decided they wanted nothing to do with the British, as is exactly the same that happened in the United States, where the British started imposing their laws, their taxes on people. They refused. They moved north into the hinterland, into the Orange Free State, into the Transvaal. Well, guess what they found there? Diamonds and gold. Well, the British thought, well, look, we'll just go take it. We have this great army, we're just going to go take it. Well, that started the Anglo-Boer War. But what people don't know, and what the black people in South Africa don't realize, is it was the Boers that actually fought the British off for them.
Mm-hmm.
Because they were literally enslaving the blacks at the time. They were the ones that started apartheid. The British did.
Yeah.
It was called separateness. So during the Anglo-Boer War, I don't know if you remember the movie Patriot.
Yeah.
They did exactly the same thing. They burnt the farms, rounded up the white people, put them on Centelita Island in the first concentration camps. Not the Germans, the British. If you read the story about the Anglo-Boer War, almost, to be honest with you, thousands and thousands and thousands of white women, children, and old people died of dysentery, being fed glass in their food, smallpox, and starvation. The British government did it.
Yeah.
And they said they did that for their good, their own good. Well, that's the normal BS you hear all the time. Anyway,
exactly.
Anyway, once they left there, the Boers gave up because now all their women and children were dying. They literally made them give up. But a small group of Boers or farmers, literal farmers, were slaughtering the British Army. The British Army got the biggest hiding of their life from these guys over a short period of time. One guy would sit out there in the morning before breakfast and kill 100 officers with one rifle. Because they had those German Mausers with smokeless gunpowder, and the British couldn't find them. Khaki uniforms, this same uniform I'm wearing right now. This was a sheet that their wives took and dyed it in tea. So it looked like the dry felt or the dry grass. And they couldn't see them. That's where the word khaki came from. Commando or commandos came from them. They were like you were talking about the Apaches. They were like these guerrilla fighters that literally was slaughtering the British Army in small groups on horseback. Much like the movie Patriot, it's almost verbatim the same story. Okay, so then, the British broke the back of them. They then became the Union of South Africa, which was part of the British Empire, and then the Empire decided, okay, they went for independence back in, I think it's 1948. Well, with the hatred of the British, the Dutch decided that they wanted nothing to do with the British. So they continued with the British policy of separateness, but in their language it's called apartheid. You understand? What people don't realize is South Africa was owned right from the beginning. Cecil John Rhodes, all these guys, right? They owned the diamond mines in Kimberley, which was the upper miners, the Rhodes Group, De Beers, Anglo-American. These are all massive British-owned companies. They owned all the banks like Absa Bank, Barclays Bank, Standard Bank. All the banking systems owned by the British. Guess what? They had no control. So what did the nationalist government do? They nationalized the TV, the damn post office, the railways, the army, the airport. They nationalized the newspapers, you name it. They controlled everything, including the telephones. Right? The problem is, you cannot do apartheid and expect things to be okay when 90% of the population is a different color.
Absolutely.
Most of the Africans were uneducated. You got to realize they were mostly tribal. They were being used in the mines as slaves. You got to understand, even today, the mining system in South Africa is corrupt to the point of ridiculous, and I'll tell you why. It costs $100 to bring out 1 ounce of gold, and they sell it for $1,400 to $1,500 an ounce on the stock market. But yet it costs $100 to come out the ground in South Africa. What does that tell you? They're still raping the country.
Most definitely.
Okay, now the infrastructure slowly started going into the natives' hands. But the problem is, if you do not have the skills to run something, and if you have the people in power that are corrupt to the point of ridiculously corrupt, that they're absolutely blatantly corrupt, you cannot fix this problem. So what happened was, the British government, with the help of the Americans and the rest of the world, with propaganda and whatever, got rid of the nationalist government because, listen, the British hated them. Doesn't matter what happens. They were still sore from the AngloBoer War. So, after lots of campaigns from 1948 till 1994, well, more like 1990, they pressurized their government to the point of collapse. We, as whites, didn't understand what the hell was going on. And we were British descendants. I remember telling my father, Dad, why are black people over there and white people over here? And he looked at me real strangely and he said, it's the law. He didn't even know. You understand what I'm saying, right? The mindset was, that's how it is.
Yeah.
Plus, not until I was 15, 16 years old did I ever see a TV, and the TV was for 1 hour, and it was in English and Afrikaans. They had us controlled like monkeys in a box. We were fed everything. We were told what was going on, how to do it. When you turned 18 years old, you were sent to the army for 2 years. You had no choice or go to jail. However, they changed the system, right? When we turned 18, when I turned 18, I ticked away, yes, let's unban the ANC. And it wasn't so much about the ANC, but it was about, like, listen, this whole system is wrong. We need to fix the system. The problem is that, as usual in every single situation, even in the situation with the Native Americans, and I've seen so many movies and documentaries and you name it, there's always the bullshitters coming in, con everybody to sign some piece of paper, and guess what? It was all bullshit from the beginning. Right?
Yes, it is.
Right? So all the treaties that were done, all the, hey, you know, they spoke to, what's his name? The Apache guy, what's his name? Geronimo. Yeah, they told him, hey, buddy, you're just going to come along, everything's going to be cool. Even the scouts were taken, once they had caught him and done everything, they were also locked up and thrown in the same train and sent off back to wherever, and never ever saw them again. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And I mean,
I'll tell you,
the Trail of Tears.
I'll tell you a little story real quick.
Yeah.
Okay. My people were the scouts that led the cavalry against Geronimo. When Geronimo finally surrendered, he told them, I'm not going to give my rifle to the white man, but I will give it to my traditional enemies. And so he gave his rifle to my people. They in turn turned him over to the United States government. And just like you said, all the Apache scouts that were with the government, they went along with Geronimo and his people, and they were sent to Florida.
Yeah.
All of them.
All of them.
Yeah.
You know, and even now I'm hearing through, I got a lot of Navajo friends, and they're telling me now that they found plutonium and oil and all this stuff on the reses now. They're coming up with stories like, hey, that treaty wasn't like 100%, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe we need to renegotiate this treaty, and they're like, no more of this nonsense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
That is true. That
so
is true.
and here's what I say to people. I put a cartoon up today, and you got the little guy with his red hat. We all know about that guy, right? And he's screaming, "You stole my land! You stole my land!" And the guy looks back at him. He goes, "You raped my wife! You raped my wife!" And he's standing back, goes, "I never raped your wife." He says, "Exactly." So I look at it like this. I was born in Africa, right?
Mm-hmm.
In 1961, I was born in Africa, under an African sky. I know shit about Europe. I don't know nothing about England. I know nothing about the Dutch. I don't know nothing about Europe, right? So what am I?
African.
African.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
you know,
every single kid that's born in South Africa right now is an African, period.
You know, Craig, you're making a very interesting point too, because those of us, whether you're full-blooded Native American like Big Mike here, or you have a little bit of Native American like me, we have a phrase. It doesn't matter. You have one drop of Indian blood in you, you're an Indian.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so
that's true.
What about those Afrikaners whose skin is just as white as mine, but they have Khoi and San and Bushman, and maybe even some Bantu in their DNA? What about them?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you know, I got a friend who lives here in Brigham City. I won't mention his name. He's whiter than me, lily white, freckles all over him, pale blue eyes, and he's got 1/16 Choctaw Indian. And I swear he's as pink as you ever seen. But he at least he's not Elizabeth Warren, right? 1,000,000th and one something possible.
There you go.
So, hey, it's sad that people actually. It's actually sad that people actually try and call themselves Native American when they're not.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, yeah.
So, Craig, I read something just recently, and this is what really gets under my skin, is that some idiot on Twitter, having a name that I cannot pronounce, saying they stole our land, they stole our language, they stole our way of life. Okay, so let's compare a few notes here when it comes to Native Americans and Native Africans. I'm not 100% keen on African history, but I'm willing to bet that 9 out of 10 Bantus still exist. Their language still exists. Their way of life still exists. My tribe, Cheyenne, yes, the language still exists. The way of life still exists on reservations. Big Mike's, his language still exists. You know, his way of life is still there. Traditional powwows, all that. But we have native tribes like where Yosemite Park sits in California.
Mm-hmm.
The indigenous people that occupied that piece of land are all gone. There's none of them left.
Wow.
Their language is gone. The people are gone, and that's actually quite a few Native American tribes. They're gone.
I was reading an article that almost 43% of the actual tribes have vanished completely.
Oh, yes.
And the languages.
Right now, I believe there are 550 some odd federally recognized tribes. And when you are a federally recognized tribe, that means we are wards of the federal government under the Department of Interior's Bureau of Indian Affairs. Okay? And they're the ones that were taking care of a lot of the tribes in the very beginning. But as the tribes grew stronger, and like, we'll take my tribe, we got the casino revenue.
Oh, yeah.
So when we got our casinos, that money goes into our programs, our departments, into our, we just built us a new grade school over here.
Great.
Right in the room from my house, we're getting new street lights out here on the reservation because it's needed, okay? There has been still, we're getting homes built for our people. There's a lot of homelessness, but we're trying to catch up and get those people and help them in that way, get them a house.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of tribes that got that casino, they had their casino, that's what they used it for. But the sad thing about it is that tribal government officials, when they get them there, they get the time to do that, and they start putting their pockets up. They start putting their pockets up. They can read. Hey, I'm on top. I can take a little bit of this money, along with the pay that the tribe gives me. And sometimes people get forgotten, and that's what happens with some of the tribes out here. But there are those tribes that are prosperous, that have casinos, hotels, or like I said, they take care of their people. Navajos just recently got their hotel. They were one of the last tribes here that wanted to get a casino.
Yeah.
The only other three are the Hopis, the Havasupai inside the Grand Canyon, and the Wallapai tribe above the Grand Canyon. And those are the three that they couldn't make a casino out there because they're too far out. There was no money to be generated.
Yeah.
So the tribes that took the casinos, they took what they were going to get for their casinos if they had built one, And so they counted their people into the different tribes. So that now these tribes that got casinos, they paid those three tribes money. So they still get some parts of the casino revenues that the other tribes have.
Yeah, that's good.
So we're all taking care of one another.
Yeah. And you know it's weird too. If the natives had united back in the beginning, you may have been better off. Let me give you a comparison. An African TV network went to Dubai and interviewed some Arab Emirates people. Now the Arab Emirates just has oil. Doesn't have any infrastructure. It has no manufacturing. It has nothing. Everything is imported and sold, or money is changed hands like a money area, And the only thing they sell is oil. But that city has monorails. It has the most modernized, unbelievable. It is the most unbelievable place I've ever been in. It is probably the most modern city in the world, right? And they asked him, why? How is this possible? They said, we have the right leader. We have the right leader. He thinks about his people, not himself. Right?
Too bad we don't have more like that.
Exactly. So here's what I'm... So let's go back to the example of South Africa. I'll continue with that little story, for instance. After apartheid was abolished, the politicians came in from the rest of the world. They basically railroaded the ANC into power with Mandela. What we never knew was there was a document drafted in 1993 stating that they would annihilate the whites. We have that document. They would destroy their pensions, they would destroy the schools, they would destroy their infrastructure, they would literally take the farms, destroy everybody, take the taxes, force the whites to pay taxes to the point of collapse. That's exactly what they're doing. The problem is, it's not the whites in the end that will suffer. It's the masses. For instance, in 25 years, the system has collapsed, the police have collapsed, the military's collapsed, the infrastructure is collapsing, the power system is breaking down daily, on the hour, almost every day. They have corrupted every single department in every single town from one side to the other side, and still blaming white people 25 years later. My question is, a child was born in 1994 on the day of independence, and 25 years later he's 25 years old and he's an adult. Do you still blame them for apartheid?
I'm going to tell you this. If I was to come face to face with the descendant of John Chivington, and I'm going to get to that story in a few minutes, but if I was to come face to face with the descendant of Colonel John Chivington, I would not hold any grudge towards him, because he's not the one who led a mass murder charade against my ancestors. Why should he have to pay the price of his great-great-grandfather?
Yep.
But they think really differently, Craig. So this is where I'm going with this. They want to compare notes. They want to compare themselves to Native Americans. Let's take a piece of history and compare it to what's happening in South Africa today.
Yeah.
They want to say their land was stolen, their language is gone, their way of life is gone, all taken by the white man. Okay, so 1864, Sand Creek, Colorado. Black Kettle, he's leading a group of Cheyenne and Arapahoes, a big village that consists mostly of women and children. And only a few warriors. And the cavalry was going to come in and meet them. Black Kettle was going to hold up a white flag for truce and an American flag to say, hey, we're on your side. John Chivington led the army for a massacre, which is today known as the Sand Creek Massacre. And it's not as if they went in and just shot them. They went in, they killed the warriors as quickly as they could. They raped the women, cut off their breasts, cut out their genitals so they could make tobacco pouches out of them, took scalps, and just a lot of rape and murder, mostly women and children. They took babies and stuck them on long poles like a shish kebab. Okay, so let's take that piece of history right there, and let's think about what happens on a South African farm. Are you going to compare that to that of what the white man did, or to that of a Native American who's oppressed?
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, here's the thing. Ramaphosa, the president of South Africa, is stating that this is just crime. This is just crime. If it's just crime, Mr. Ramaphosa, why are they torturing these people for hours and hours and hours?
Yeah. So what goes on? What goes on a South African farm? Maybe a group of 5, 6 people go in. They'll tie the man up, do something as heinous as to cut his eyelids out so he can't close his eyes. He has to watch everything that happens to his family.
Yes.
Watch his daughter get crucified. A bit, as young, maybe 3 to 5 years old, gets crucified on a kitchen table and raped, and boiling water poured all over her body, so assuring she dies a very slow and agonizing death. And his wife having bread stuffed in her mouth so she can't scream, and they take turns gang raping her and then doing whatever else they can to mutilate her. Sometimes they'll rob the place. They'll maybe take the TV, the laptop, the cell phone, sometimes. Or sometimes they just in there for what they're doing to accomplish that goal.
Exactly.
Of rape, torture, and murder.
That's it.
So, I'm sorry. So those of you who compare yourselves to Native Americans, go out and do this. I'm sorry. I compare you to John Chivington, the white people that did this to Native Americans.
And here's the thing, today on the 17th of this month, this idiot Julius Malema, the leader of the EFF, is telling people in a town hall, there's still a revolution, you need guns, get ready, arm yourself, we're not done. And when we are old, and when we have our farms, because we're not paying for the farms we've got, we're going to take this land with no compensation. Meaning, what they're literally doing is killing these farmers and getting them off the land so they can take them. It's deliberate genocide.
And let's say they accomplish the goal they have. What are they going to do next when they're starving and there's no food growing?
They will eat dirt, just like they're doing in Zimbabwe.
And who are they going to blame it on?
The white people.
Exactly.
And here's another thing that people don't realize, and I keep bringing this up. There will be a massive humanitarian crisis within 10 years. Massive. Because the people that have become hungry will move north. They will move all the way to Europe as they're doing right now. This will become a European problem.
Exactly.
Because the northern areas don't have food. When the southern areas don't have food because they've moved south, guess what's happened? With the xenophobia that's going on, they All the people that came south are moving back north to get away from the xenophobia, because these people are killing them now. They're pulling drivers out of trucks, chopping their legs off, their arms off, killing the women, killing the guys. And now the Congo, the people in the Congo, the people in Kenya, the people in Zimbabwe, people in Zambia, the people in Mozambique, they're all voicing voice messages out there. You come into our land now, we will kill you all. And that's exactly what's happening. As soon as the trucks arrive, they're pulling the drivers out, killing the drivers and burning the trucks. So now the transportation system in South Africa is also collapsing. So they're cutting their own food off as well, and their trade. It's like a never-ending mess. There's now, you can't even believe the amount of crime that's running rampant in the country. And the government's doing absolutely nothing. They just appointed a new parliament because they got erroneously elected as usual through corruption. And they've doubled the parliament people. Compared to any other country in the world, they have more parliamentary people sitting there on their butts, falling asleep, taking the paycheck. And doing nothing.
Yeah. No worries. You know, there's something else that I want to bring up too, that I've also read too, is I don't know how long has this been going on with the poaching in South Africa. I mean, you had Diane Fossey going out to the Congo to try to save the gorillas. Plus, you got for the past 30 plus years, they've been killing off elephants just for their tucks, leaving the bodies to rot. They're killing off rhinos, taking the horns and leaving the bodies to rot. And a lot of them are saying, "Oh, this is another act from the white man. They're trying to blame us." I just trying to blame white people for the poaching of their wildlife there. But
you know who's one of the biggest poachers in South Africa?
Who's that?
Ramaphosa's son.
I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it. The thing is, okay, so let's compare notes here. They still want to you want to compare to Native Americans. Okay, so white people killed off the buffalo, the American bison, almost to the point of extinction.
Yeah.
I mean, what did they do? They cut out their tongues, cut off their hides, and left the bodies to rot. Luckily, you know, the buffalo, they're not as the population isn't as big as it was 100 plus years ago, but you know, I think they're good enough now to where they're going to prosper until the end of time.
Yeah.
But there are species of rhino that are gone now because of this continuous poaching, and they want to blame white people for that. When the fact of the matter is,
it's the Chinese.
It's the Chinese.
Mm-hmm.
They hire the local Bantus or whoever they do to do these deeds, to kill these animals, and give them a bunch of money for the horns. And yeah, I can't really, you know, the poachers, I really can't blame too much because a lot of them are poor and just trying to get a few bucks to do something. But the fact of the matter is, the poachers are the native people that are doing it for somebody else who isn't white, but yet they still want to blame that problem on us. I don't get it.
Yeah, here's the thing. They mainly getting the rhinos for some sexual powder that they get. Apparently it's supposed to give them some sexual preface or whatever from a rhino horn, which is absolute nonsense. Everybody knows it's nonsense. The tusks from the elephants, the ivory's been banned for years. What do they need it for?
You know, and you bring up one other thing too, is you know, they take the rhino horn and they mash it into some kind of powder that they say cures impotence.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what the rhino horn consists of? the same material that your hair and fingernails are made of.
Exactly.
So if that's going to cure impotence, all you got to do is bite your nails, for crying out loud.
Yeah. Not only that, they want tiger's nuts. Tiger's nuts. Come on, man. You gonna eat somebody's balls? Excuse my French. It doesn't even make sense, man. It's like it's the most bizarre thing I have ever. There's no logic to it.
So, and then there's been this argument too. Oh, so why are the natives crying over the buffalo? Because they killed the buffalo too, but they killed the buffalo for a purpose, and they didn't kill them in mass quantities.
Yeah, and they used everything.
I mean,
Everything.
They ate the meat. They made tools out of bones.
Out of the bones, yep.
Clothes out of hides. They made full use of the buffalo.
Exactly, and it's kind of like the Inuits. Is it the Inuits up in Alaska?
Yes.
They take the whale, the seals, is it the whales and the seals, and they use everything, literally everything, every bone, the fat from the seals, the fat from everything is used for a purpose.
And they don't kill them off to the point of extinction.
Exactly.
They take what they need and leave the rest alone.
Yep.
From what as I'm listening to all of this, and then what they're trying to compare, what's going on there with the native way, and just what what you just got to say, as the native peoples, we only took what we needed. The thing about it is that all native peoples, we were caretakers of this land. We never owned it. We never owned any piece or anything like that. We were just caretakers of this land. We were to live in harmony and balance with everything that's out there, and using and taking only what we needed.
Yeah.
And that was it. Until the coming of the Europeans.
Yeah.
When the Europeans came, especially through my area, the Spanish. When the Spanish came in, to Mexico and into South America, they were looking for gold.
Yeah.
Because they heard that this land was full of gold. And even when, Coronado came from Mexico coming up to this way, that's the question he asked. Where are the 7 cities of gold? A myth of 7 cities of gold. All natives told him, no, we don't know where that's at. We never heard about that.
I think
so
the prize of is the blue stone, right?
Yeah. They couldn't find it.
And that just kind of reminds me too. This one Mexican guy that I used to work with, had a little talk with him, and I popped the question to him. I said, "Do you ever wonder why your native language is Spanish when you're about 3,000 plus miles away from Spain?" When it comes to the tyranny of this country, all we got to do really look is no farther than the 2 major languages spoken in this country, English and Spanish. The British and the Spaniards came over and did a lot of conquering and a lot of stealing.
Yeah. Yep. That's true. The funny thing about that is that my wife is Mexican, okay, and she just went to ancestry.com to find it, and they come to find out they are descendants of Montezuma, the Aztec emperor. But they also have traces of Spanish blood from Ponce de Leon. Guys are looking for the fountain of youth. But my wife, she does not claim the Spanish side. She says, that she did it. And when you look at the word Mexican, it means mixture. Okay? Because a lot of those tribes, as you said, Spanish came in. The same thing with a lot of the native tribes here, that when the Spanish came through, there were some words that we are using because we didn't have the language or the name. When the Spanish first came to here, they brought civilization. They brought the horses. They brought the axes, shovels, all these different things. They brought cattle. They brought, chickens, and all of these different things that we native people never ever had before.
Yeah. Because horses are not native to, correct? Horses are not native to the United States, right? Or to America, right?
Yeah. No. We never had horses or cattle or anything like that.
Mm.
So, it's it makes me laugh that, that they want to say that they're dealing with what we did 100 years ago, and there is nothing. Nothing. There's nothing. I mean, they've just become just like the white man. They've turned into the white man. They become murderers, thieves, rapists, liars. Everything that they say the white man stole from them, they have taken and become the white man. When you really look at it,
they have become
they may be dark skinned. They may be dark skinned. They may be black, but they are white. The concepts, ideas, thoughts, everything is the white man's. They don't think for themselves as true, traditional, tribal peoples.
Because they wouldn't do this.
That's no longer there.
Mm-hmm.
That's no longer there. They don't have that anymore. They threw that out the window. And so they accepted and embraced the white man.
And you're right, because they just want the BMW. They want the fancy phone. They want the fancy watch and the money and the clothes and the girlfriend. And if they didn't want all this whiteness, then why are they wanting all that stuff? Especially BMWs, which is German.
Yeah. That's the white man's car. Well, it's that's what I mean about that. I mean, I've kind of jumped at some of the people that say they're traditional. They do speak the language. They do know stories and such like that. But there they are at some of the traditional dances and stuff, wearing like that, brand new watches, brand new shoes, real nice clothes and everything like that. And I asked them, why are you dressed like that? If you're traditional, why don't you wear the wrapper on? Why aren't you in bare feet? Why isn't your hair just loose? Why don't you have long hair? And they can never answer. They can never come back with an answer. Because they're standing there with that new shoes and clothes and brand new watch and whatever else. Got cell phones. They're sitting there singing. Cell phone goes off and, it's... That's not traditional.
You talk about that. I've met lots of Mexican kids who can't speak any Spanish at all.
Yeah.
And I say, you can't speak Spanish? And they go, no. Do your parents speak Spanish? Yes. Do you understand? A little bit.
Yeah. My wife, I'm teaching my wife and daughter how to speak, my language. And one day we went to the Catholic church. I'm a Catholic. So we went to Mass that morning, and I told her, say this to my auntie. I told her, say good morning. And she's going to say, good morning, how are you? And you reply to her, I'm good. Okay, so that morning she went to my aunt, and she told her in the language, good morning. She goes, how are you? And she goes, oh, I'm good. How are you? And my wife told her, oh, I'm good too. Then my aunt started talking to her in the language, and my wife goes, wait. That's all he told me. It's all he taught me. My aunt looked at me and told me straight up, you better start teaching her more.
There we go.
I like that.
Because, see, when I got married, okay, I did everything to the traditional ways as close as I could do it. In my tribe, we are a patriarchal society, which means when you are introducing yourself, you go to your father, to your grandfather, to your great-grandfather. Okay? Then you jump over to your mother's side. You go to her father and her grandfather, like that, all the way back like that. So when I married her in tribal quarters. Okay, that's the closest I could come to marrying her in the tribe. 1 year later, in fact, this Saturday is our 12-year anniversary of being married.
Congratulations.
We got married same day, next year, same day, June 22nd. We got married in the Catholic Church. We were married in the Catholic Church, and when she came down the aisle, when her father brought her in, I played a flute. We didn't play, "Here Comes the Bride, Here Comes..." No, I played a flute that she came down to. Okay? At the end of the Catholic Mass, my uncle, who has passed away, and may he rest in peace, he was in Vietnam. He was a Green Beret. But when he came home, he went back to his traditional ways. And after that Mass, he got up and he gave us his traditional ways. So, I think my wife was to do that, my daughter, but she's my stepdaughter. That's her daughter. But her daughter has been out there, and she's starting to, pick up the language a bit too. And she has learned to do sweat lodges with me. And when we do women's sweats, she and my niece run the women's sweats. All I do is just sing songs for them. That's all I do. And they take care of it. So, since they moved out here and been with me these 12 years, they slowly become part of the tribe. They slowly understand my culture to the point where sometimes they know a little bit more than even the tribal peoples here. And it surprises them.
That's good.
By the way, I just had to bring this little bit of comedy, if that's what you want to call it, to give what you were saying earlier a few minutes ago. Of course, we have Ndili and Dama of a terrorist group. At least I'm going to call them a terrorist group. Black First, Land First. And of course, they say they sympathize with Native Americans because they're going on the same thing. Happened to us, happened to them, blah, blah, blah. This is the same story they're going to spew.
Yeah.
But according to them, Native Americans are, quote unquote, black people. I laugh at that. I mean, they say everybody came from Africa and then spread out throughout the world. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I do know that some anthropologists compare us to the East, to the Mongolians, Chinese, and North Koreans. And my wife saw that one time. She said she saw this picture of these Chinese or North Koreans, I think it was. And she said she saw another picture of natives. And she said they almost look alike.
And talking about that, they did a DNA analysis of 100 tribes and found that the DNA can be traced across the divide into Mongolia, and there's a tribe in North Russia that is related to some of the tribes in America.
Yeah, that's true, because I know this one guy. He was telling me that the Navajo and Apache language is almost similar to, I think it's the Mongolians or somebody up in China. I think there was a place in China where they were like that. Even some of the Eskimos, they have, certain, their language is almost the same as the Navajos and the Apaches. So, the history and the story is that we did come from the east, crossing the Bering Sea.
Bering Sea, yeah.
Now, they started to settle up in Alaska, But they divided. From what I was told, they divided. One group headed for the East Coast, the other group headed down south. So as they started to spread across the United States and going into Mexico, going into, Latin America, and then on down into South America, that's how we were supposedly spread, going across like that. And this is, God, centuries and centuries ago. To the point where we've all settled to where we are at now. And everybody has their own traditional, names and everything of how their tribes are called.
I do have a question for you in that, and I grew up on Louis L'Amour books.
Yeah.
That's why I came to America. I literally grew up on reading. That was the only books I ever read when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I literally lived in the West in these books. It was my escape. Was Louis L'Amour books, and he talks about the other people, not the natives, but the people before the natives, the little people. Do you guys talk about them, or do you guys know about them?
Most likely he's talking about everybody's ancestors. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
The ancestors of all the different tribes. I believe that's what he's talking about when they say about the other people. Now, there are stories out here with my people that talk about little people, okay? And, how some of them are mischievous, some of them are helpers.
Mm-hmm.
They're just different kinds of little, I guess you would say they're like leprechauns.
Okay.
The native way. And then also I've heard about people that live in where the Star Mountains are, the Shreyas, that were giants. Okay?
Yeah.
And they supposedly still live there, but nobody sees them.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't doubt it. I wouldn't doubt it that there are still people out there like that. But they just live so long and learn how to stay away and keep from being seen.
Uh-huh. Some of them talk about the Anastasi.
Yeah. Those are the ancestors, I believe, of the Hopis and Navajos.
Yes.
That's theirs.
Yeah, in Utah you'll find caves in all over the place where they've made them into historical areas, and you can't go there.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Where I live at, there's a certain area below Star Mountains, across the river, and it's still an old village. I mean, it's still the old way.
Yeah.
It's still up there, and nobody can go up there. Mm-hmm. It's protected.
Oh yeah.
The tribe is protected. It's a sanctuary.
Mm-hmm.
But you can only drive up to a certain point. Then from there, you have to walk in or go by horseback.
Yeah.
And but they won't take anybody up there. Yeah. I've been up there. I know where it's at. I've been through that. I walked through there.
I'm working in North Dakota, and some of those oil fields are way out there. And you'll get there, and you by yourself, and you get a creepy feeling, and you turn around, and you just thinking somebody's gonna be sitting on a horse behind you. It's that weird out there, because it's literally empty, just rolling hills. Oh, yeah. And then you go into these like valleys, and you disappear. You literally disappear, and you'll find and what's amazing out there is, the place is littered with old cars from even Model T Fords. You'll find them in the rivers.
Yeah.
You'll find literally cars littered all over their place, just in places that you cannot imagine how a car got there. Right? Yeah. And then you'll get in a valley, and you'll find an old hut that's fallen in, and then you see another one next to it, and another one next to it, and just down the road is the new modern house. And it looks like 5 generations of houses that were built in that same area. You know what I mean? From back in the day.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's like out here, when they started building homes for the people, a lot of them still lived in the old traditional mud houses. So, they decided, that those houses were not up to the international builders code. Because it had, they wired it up, and they did plumbing, when, electricity and water came out here, but they hauled the water before.
Oh yeah.
You know, they put it on wagons and horses, and you went to where the water place was at.
Yeah.
And you filled your 55-gallon drums, and then you hit back again, and you dump all the water out and put it into the 55-gallon drums that are at the house. And I mean, it was a process.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was a process.
Yeah. And you know what's amazing too is
those houses are gone.
Yeah. You know what's amazing too in Africa, I could never understand why they would build a hut halfway up the mountain. And the old grandmother, the Koko, she would go down the hill with a 5-gallon drum on her head and go down to the river and get water and walk all the way up. I mean, this 65-year-old lady with a 5-gallon drum on her head and a 5-year-old following her with another one on her head, all the way up the hill, right? And I could never figure out why they did that until I asked why. And in the middle of the mountain is where it's the warmest, because the heat's rising off the valley floor during the day, and at night that middle area stays warm. And then I was reading up on the Incas, that they were growing wheat up in those mountains. And you know how they were doing it? They were running rivers, ditch water in between the patches, that there was water in there all the time. And the reason for that was at night, because the water heated up during the day, it created a heat dome over the wheat. As it was cooling off, the heat raised up during the night, and it didn't freeze the wheat. That's smart.
You know that also reminds me too. I'm pretty sure, Craig, you've seen the movie. I can't pronounce it very well, but the movie with Steve Hoffmeyer, where he plays a farmer, and in the end he's victim to a brutal murder.
No,
You've seen that movie?
No, I haven't seen the movie. No, I'll look it up.
Yeah. I know it's called Place of Mourning is what it's translated to in English.
Okay.
Trier Font is what I can't. My Afrikaans is not that great, so. But the very beginning of that movie shows Steve Hoffmeyer. He's playing a farmer, and he takes a little piece of the dirt and just very lightly tastes it to taste the minerals in the dirt.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how he can tell whether or not it's going to be a good year to plant crops.
Yeah, they could taste the nitrogen. And these guys, listen, you got to realize, South African farmers, that's an art form that they figured out how to farm.
Yeah, they have had traditional ways of their own from many generations.
Many generations, yeah. And you know what? Here's another thing people don't realize. In Africa, you have a thorn bush, right? It takes a year for the thorns to take over. It takes 25 years to get rid of them. So as soon as a farm collapses and the thorns take over, it will take you 25 years to get rid of the thorns again so you can plant again.
Yeah. There's going to be,
Then nobody's figuring this out. And every single farm that's been taken over by the South African government turned to thorns. Within
that's what happened in Zimbabwe.
Exactly the same.
Yeah, I read about that. Yeah, because before South Africa, Rhodesia, formerly known as Rhodesia, was the main bread basket for the whole continent of South Africa.
Exactly.
Much more than, or for the whole continent of Africa, much more than South Africa was.
Exactly. They had cotton, the best cotton in the world. Tobacco, best tobacco in the world. The Americans were actually buying the tobacco and remixing it to their own brands. Do you remember Texas? It was called, was it Texas? It was a round sign, like it was just Texas. It was a Texas brand, and it had no filters. This came from Rhodesia.
Those, yeah, and then of course here comes Robert Mugabe. Let's expropriate the land without compensation, and the place completely
collapsed.
Shit.
And they're doing it again.
And those who don't learn from history are bound to repeat it.
Exactly. That's exactly my sentiments. Exactly.
Yes.
Well, guys, it's been great.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It was great to meet you, John.
Yeah, thanks for giving me a chance to rant a little bit.
No worries, no worries. But you know what? This is great because people in South Africa need to know that the natives in America don't support this nonsense either.
Yeah, absolutely.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.